Hey y'all. So, since there was no episode of The Inner yesterday, I decided that I was going to do a little bit of a story time for y'all. And I did go live on Facebook yesterday to tell this story, but there were some issues with the recording. Facebook, you'll pay for your crimes. But uh, I thought I'd do y'all some justice and try to compile that whole story together and share it with the clips I wanted to use. So before I start off, let me say that this message isn't for the faint of heart. In fact, because of the nature of some of the clips that I'll be using, um, language will be a bit strong for this specific episode. I personally don't curse, but hey, some of these videos do have some language in it. So just giving y'all that as a fair warning that if that's not the type of content you're interested in, I understand. Also, we're going to be covering race relations a bit. So if you're not interested in the topic of racism or bettering uh, social structures as a whole, this also might not be the video for you. Um, so I asked Facebook, I think it was last week, if they would like for me to tell a story about meeting a specific spirit. Um, and it was a picture of one of the characters from, I think it's a TV show called Them. Now, mind you, I still haven't seen the show, I haven't watched it, but it caught my attention because one of the important characters, I'm assuming, still haven't seen it, was a character known as the Tap Dance Man, which in that show was a demon that was pretty much an embodiment of black anger, black rage, black hatred that was manifesting to convince whoever the guy was to do something about his situation instead of being just easy about what was going on. Um, so what I want to do is I want to show y'all just a few clips of this character, just a few scenes. And then I'm going to tell my story about meeting a spirit that looked and acted just like this one. So here we go.
As a man to us, saving us the bother of going after him. And then, I would confess this openly, as one criminologist to another, we take credit for being inhumanly skillful.
Oh, that you fiddling with. Nonsense. Well, that's one way to put it. But them boys figure that them bones was walking around here once, and the folks that was wearing them.
Lord, Mr. Henry, these monkey shines like to have me bust the scene.
Where you come from? This is my house.
Sure paid enough for it.
That's right. I paid for this. All of it. Me.
And now that old Faye taking the food out your children's mouths. That old rascal?
I say, profit sharing is something you earn, Emery.
Ooh, Mr. Henry, if you don't sound just like him. Lord, what kind of monkey shines is you perpetrate?
Who the hell you think he is?
I was powerful thirsty, Mr. Henry. And now I can conjugate more proper like. What you gonna do? 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 What?
All right, and I want to show one more clip of the tap dance man.
Why they do you like that, Mr. Henry? And these crackers just take and take and take like it's all land. Like it's all for them. Take your missus, take your child, take your work, take your home. When they gonna stop taking from you, Mr. Henry? They won't. That's right, they won't. They start with your pancake. No telling where they gonna end.
I only got one bullet left.
You don't need no bullets. Couldn't protect your missus or your boy child that day. But you sure can protect your family now. So go out there. Go out there with your bare hands and show them crackers what they came here to see. A peace.
All right, we'll end that there. So, just to get into, so that's kind of a preface of what I meant when I said I met that spirit. A few years ago, actually. Now, mind you, I just saw that clip, the first clip, part of it at least, the first time on Twitter, maybe 4 months ago. But I had this experience about 4 years ago, which is what caught my attention. I was like, wait, somebody, hey, this is accurate. I've seen that thing before. And honestly, I probably was never going to tell this story if I didn't realize someone else had already put it into film. So, uh, well, here's my story. So I was in college. We were in my history class and we were covering the Industrial Revolution. We weren't even covering race relations. And I was sitting there and I was listening, taking notes, usual college stuff. And I looked up and noticed a spirit standing against the wall. And that spirit looked very similar to the tap dance man, where it was it appeared as somewhat like a old-timey black man, either in blackface with the exaggerated feature, or it had exaggerated features more so. Its lips were really big, its nose were all those exaggerated cartoonish features that are usually given in racial cartoons. This spirit was taking that on, and it had a noose wrapped around its neck that had been broken as if it'd been hung before. And I saw it was kind of mumbling and murmuring. And I looked at it and I said, okay, that's interesting. Now, mind you, I was feeling a whole lot of power coming from it. And I was able to discern in the moment that what I was seeing wasn't a demon. Not because I felt a lot of power coming from it, but there's two different discernments going on here. One, that it's powerful, two, that it's not evil. but I knew that it was somewhat of a precursor. Mind you, I never planned on telling this story. Now, this was early 2020. This was before any of the protests. This was before any of the riots. But when he appeared, I said, this year's going to be interesting. And I left it at that. Now, some might ask, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you share anything? Well, mind you, I've been a seer for years. Since 2017, I've seen angels, demons, spirits, this, that, and the other. So seeing isn't abnormal to me enough to share a story every time I see something. That would be as if I were to ask you to document every time you see a squirrel or edit every time you see a bird and make a video about it. I see stuff all the time. So that day didn't cross me as anything different than what I was already experiencing. So as we all know, 2020, there were a ton of riots, a ton of protests. Sadly, a lot of the Christians saw that as, a lot of the Christians saw that as somewhat of an uprising. Oh, they're trying to start a race war. And I'm saying Christians because that's who I was around the most at that time. And they weren't in support of people not wanting to be lynched, not wanting to be killed by police. I didn't realize that was a controversial stance that, hey, let's say I am a criminal. I deserve to get arrested, go to court, and go through my due process. I shouldn't get executed on the street. I didn't know that was controversial or as controversial until 2020. And I've heard a lot of quote unquote spiritual people or spiritual people who were just racially ignorant say a lot of jacked up stuff concerning the situation. Now, mind you, I've been an advocate for every other group, which is why I have no problem talking about Black issues also. I'm not only pro-Black, even though I'm pro-humanity. And it kind of goes into the topic of, well, what about all lives matter? I'm like, I agree. All lives do matter. But when certain lives aren't treated the same, we kind of have to highlight to make sure that equity takes effect. You have to specify when something's left out. So before I share a bit more on some of the things that I took away from that meeting and what I was able to get out of that experience, I want to share on. I want to show y'all one more clip. Now, this clip comes from the show American Gods. Now, I wish I could watch the whole thing because that covers a lot of topics that I'd love to share with y'all about. Because that show illustrates a lot, but right now Stars is taking it down. It's not available. You can only watch the first episode on Amazon Prime or on Stars. So yeah, until something changes, we can't watch the whole thing. But this is a scene that went viral several times. Mind you, I'm just now seeing it. But there's a lot of important things here, and I actually believe they're the same spirit, just presented in a different light. So here we go. One more video, one more clip for y'all. All right.
Amaro mebe nem no kono.
Oh, she long dead. She wouldn't give it up for Honest up there, so he threw her off the boat. Did you know your mama couldn't swim? You all need to work on that. Take swimming lessons. This is how we get stereotypes.
Anansi.
You won't help? Fine. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, a man got fucked. Now, how is that for a story? Because that's the story of Black people in America. Shit, you all don't know you black yet. You think you just people. Let me be the first to tell you that you are all black. The moment these Dutch motherfuckers set foot here and decided they white, and you get to be black, and that's the nice name they call you, let me paint a picture of what's waiting for you on the shore. You arrive in America, land of opportunity, milk and honey, and guess what? You all get to be slaves, split up, sold off, and worked to death. The lucky ones get Sunday off to sleep and fuck and make more slaves and all for what? For cotton, indigo, for a fucking purple shirt. The only good news is the tobacco your grandkids are gonna farm for free is gonna give a shitload of these white motherfuckers cancer. And I ain't even started yet. 100 years later, you're fucked. 100 years after that, fucked. 100 years free, you still getting fucked out of job and shot at by police. You see what I'm saying? This guy gets it. I like him. He's getting angry. Angry is good. Angry gets shit done. You shed tears for Kumbe and Nancy, and here he is telling you are staring down the barrel of 300 years of subjugation, racist bullshit, and heart disease. He is telling you there ain't one goddamn reason you shouldn't go up there right now and slit the throats of every last one of these Dutch motherfuckers and set fire to this ship.
Mana, bomme lega boko. Nini lega wo.
You already dead, asshole. At least die a sacrifice for something worthwhile. Let the motherfucker burn. Let it all burn.
All right. All right. Enough of that. So let me again remind you that no, I have no personal issues with any people group specifically. If we're talking about America, yes, a lot of the issues we have, especially as Black people, do stem from racist white people. But what we're dealing with mostly today are the systems put in place long before most of us who are here now were ever born, or in some cases before our parents and possibly our grandparents even made it to the planet. Most of the racism in America is systemic, meaning that it's a system in place that benefits certain people and makes other things a bit harder for other people. And unless you're on the side that has the handicaps, you won't really see it. Which means let's start there. We want to end racism. We're tired of hearing about racism. You're tired of hearing the horror stories. Well, it starts with allowing yourself to hear the horror stories. One of the worst things I've ever heard someone say, and this was a preacher, she said, everyone has a sad story. Don't nobody want to hear that. That's the worst thing you can tell the people who are actually going through something. Is that so what? You just have one sad story. We all have a sad story. There's no empathy. There's no compassion. There's no love in that. It takes us to actually care enough about ourselves and enough about those around us to actually care about their sad story enough to make sure not only do they get out of whatever pit that they're in, but that they're able to that we don't see those same issues repeating. And this is an issue I've had with the way that certain ministries that I've worked with in the past, or certain cultures that I've been a part of, handled the topic of forgiveness, where they put all the responsibility on the victim and none on the victimizer. No responsibility on the abuser. And I've never stood for that. I'm a person of balance. I believe that, yes, victims should forgive, but I also believe that there should be justice served to those who abuse. I believe that people who do horrible things should repent, that they should step out of the lifestyle, that they should come out of a lot of that stuff. If you handle just one side or the other, you end up with an imbalance. So the idea of a victim mentality alone being the cause of Black people's problems is the biggest gaslight that I've honestly had the misfortune of being a part of in conversations. It's the biggest gaslight, because in some cases, yes, I teach metaphysics, that the mentality that you stay in attracts things of that mentality. That doesn't change. You have to learn cause and effect, that we are currently in a system. There's one thing to have a mentality, there's another to be in a reality. And I find it unfair that the liberation for Black people has to be spiritual growth, that all of us have to be spiritual adepts in order to not be oppressed. That's not fair. Because honestly, we get to watch, and I'm speaking as an American in America, someone that's grown up here, we get to watch every other culture be fine. Yeah, they have their moments of hatred. You know, what was it? 14 Asian businesses got shot up within the span of a few weeks. And within that same month, or within the next 2 months, they were able to pass an Asian hate crime bill. Well, shoot, Negroes been getting lynched for free, and we don't have a bill that says it's not okay to lynch us. We don't have an anti-police brutality act that stops police officers from murdering us without a cause. We don't have that. We don't. Right now, they're trying to pass an anti-Semitism bill. You notice that whenever someone mentions the Jews or the Jewish people in a neutral or negative light, they end up getting in trouble. Well, shoot, we've been getting called the N-word for free my whole life, and all of my grandparents' life, my great-grandparents' lives. Racial slurs have become so normal that other groups say them as a term of endearment. So let's just say it's not fair. It takes us to have tough conversations with each other, very, very uncomfortable, but very, very necessary conversations with each other. Now, as for Black people, I'd have to agree with Anansi's statement, which is that anger gets stuff done. Frankly, we as a community are far too forgiving without repentance. Even the Bible say repentance comes before forgiveness. In that we've allowed, as a culture, and I'll say we this time, we haven't allowed ourselves to get angry enough to change our circumstance, because for several reasons, psychologically, we've been bound into believing that anger is a bad thing. We don't want to be seen as how we were characterized. We were, well, shoot, the tap dance man said it, a beast. Treated and presented as animals less than, that's a creature, that's an animal. They don't know how to behave. So a lot of the fear of being angry is that we'll go down as a statistic of another angry Black man or another angry Black woman, somebody that's causing a scene in public. And that's truthfully enough to bind most of us, is that we don't like the stereotype enough to become a victim of a system. Now, being angry doesn't necessarily mean being loud. It doesn't necessarily mean being violent, but it doesn't exclude that either. In fact, every area of history, every change that has ever occurred in human history, from the most ancient to the most recent, has only happened when someone got fed up enough with the current situation to decide that something needed to change. They call it the Boston Tea Party. Well, that's what happened when people got so upset they were frisbeeing discs of tea out into the sea, messing with them people money. When people got fed up enough to even combat the government. Now, that's presented as a good thing in American society, but even something as simple as football players or basketball players choosing to take a knee instead of stand for the national anthem, as peaceful as a protest that is hated by people who think America has done nothing wrong, which they're just gaslighters. They know what happened. They know what's still happening. Someone who I love and respect, Dr. Jane Elliott. I've had her on my show before. There's a clip that you can find of her. In fact, all right.
I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
Yeah, that's Jane. I love Jane for obvious reasons. So that's actually part of it, is that for the most part, even white people don't get the option of the ignorance play, because that was proof in itself that majority know what's happening. There are some that simply don't, because there are certain things as isolated communities. There is such thing as indoctrination. Those things do exist. So I won't say that everyone is ignorant or everyone knows what they're doing, but far more. Which means, very simply put, we have to take that treat others the way you want to be treated thing a bit more seriously, even down to the point of don't allow something to happen to someone else that you wouldn't like to experience yourself. You can't take it is completely evil to ignore millions of a people group that are saying this country is hurting me. The systems in place aren't fair. We're being targeted, and say, oh, nah. They just don't like accountability. Oh, no, here they are, just whining and complaining. You know how hard it is to get 1 million people to agree on anything? You know how hard it is to get 5 people to agree on something? So when you have the majority of the black population in America saying this isn't good, not only have we been experiencing things, we're still experiencing things that aren't good. It's a community effort to kill racism. In the same way that we can benefit from positive things that have happened in the past, such as technological advancements, it is equally as possible and equally as true that there are people groups that are still negatively affected by things that have happened long ago. So even the plea of, oh, that's in the past, they should let it go, doesn't work. Because that's also ignorance to history, that there have been many times throughout the last 100 years where black communities, or black people in general, have said, you know what, we don't want nothing from y'all. We're going to get by ourselves. We're going to get our stuff ourselves. Forget the 40 acres and the mule. Forget all that. We just gonna buy us some land, build our businesses, and help each other. Well, they burn that to the ground every time. Tulsa, Oklahoma was one of the few. Well, I mean, was one of many. The Tulsa massacre was one of many. It was one of many, and currently they're trying to stall out some of the survivors from the Tulsa massacre. Because they're in their 80s, they're in their 90s, they're in their early hundreds, and they're like, well, if they die, we don't have to pay them. So they're currently trying to stall them out. This is the same thing I said when I usually see this from white people. Again, sorry, I might seem targeted. I promise that's not my intention, but it is what it is. When people are kneeling instead of standing for the national anthem, they say, oh, well, donate your legs to a veteran who would proudly love to stand. For one, that's ignorant. Two, it's stupid. Yeah, the national anthem specifically celebrates Black people being enslaved, and any one of us has the right to refuse to honor that song. Part of American freedoms. You want to talk about veterans fighting and dying and injuring themselves for the country? Well, those amendments, one of them is the freedom of protest, and kneeling is a protest, which means it's very American and it's very patriotic to protest when the government is mistreating you. Why would I want to listen to a song that celebrates my ancestors being enslaved? I'll have you know that when I was in the military, or even back in high school when I was in ROTC, I didn't stand for the national anthem. I didn't even stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Because even then I knew that there was nothing to honor. Until this place fixes up, there's nothing to honor. I believe it can be fixed up, but that takes a community effort of people being willing to be progressive. There's a wonderful video, and I'm not going to play it here today. But that goes into, before I go into that. So still with the veterans thing, if we're still talking about veterans, did you know how many Black people who fought in wars in the past, specifically Vietnam, have not gotten their bill? They have not gotten any of their benefits from serving in the military. I actually know a man who's 71. He might be turning 72 soon, if I'm not mistaken. He was a coworker of mine, and the only reason we were coworkers is because he never got his benefits. Now he has, I believe it's dementia, which means he's already used up. This is his late game for the most part. He's still trying to get his 100%. Now, the VA office has admitted that racism is the cause. That over the past 70 years or 50 years, yes, they have been people who've worked in the offices that have been intentionally denying the rights of anyone who was Black. Whether they were injured or not, it didn't matter. They saw the race, the nationality, they saw Black on the page and denied the benefits. So the VA has been not only under investigation, but has been going through a process of going back through a lot of their old records in order to give benefits to people who should have been had their benefits. You can actually hear about the story of, I guess, a foundation between a former veteran and a more recent veteran, as in someone from, I think he's from Vietnam era, and someone from more recent, I think Afghanistan, who both of them got denied. And the funny thing about the Vietnam guy, I think he was Vietnam, he actually worked at the VA office before, and not only did they deny him his benefits, they refused to let him come back and work after he got out of the military. So there isn't an area of American society that has been fair to Black people. Yes, we've persevered, but that's not a story that needs to be continued. Um, we don't need another 100 years of us being seen as strong, persevering. We have a lot of endurance. We have some stamina. We don't need any more of those stories. It's time for us to be prosperous, respected, equal for once. You know, we've only been considered human on the planet for a little over 70 years. Not on the planet, but in America. There's a lot that's happened. There's a lot that's still happening. So let me wrap this up. If you want to contribute to racism ending in America, do whatever you can to make sure those reparations go through. Because that's step one. Monetarily, the government has made sure that Black people stayed in poverty. Overall, that was very intentional, and even some of the presidents have admitted to foul play. Some things were very intentional, and we still are affected by that in mass. So you can't even use myself, someone who isn't as negatively benefited by it, as a reason to say no one's benefited. I'm one of few. The community as a whole is wounded, and healing starts when you reparations is really just money to repair. We've had entire communities destroyed. We've had families torn apart. We've had all types of foul play. If I started to share some of the rougher things that have happened in the last 100 years, it turned into a horror story real quick. But yeah, reparations is number one. Do whatever you can. If you want racism in America to start to heal, do whatever you can to make sure those reparations get through. And if we're talking about it socially, no matter what your creed is, whatever your religion is, none of that matters. Have those uncomfortable conversations. Don't just write yourself off and say, I'm not racist. I don't want to hear all of that, because that means you're a part of the problem now. Have some conversations, not just for views, but have some conversations with people who don't look like you to find out what life is really like for them. Anyone can assume. And don't just stop with one person. Ask a few different people, because all of our experiences are different. Some of us carry the issues different. Some of us, and I'm talking about my age group and those a bit younger than me, some of us really don't know all that happened simply because the school stopped teaching a lot of what happened. Right now, they call it critical race theory. It's really just history. And again, you got your white people, your Republicans, and your Christians fighting against sharing that, because those are three groups that actually benefit from Black people not knowing what happened to them and why they're in the state that they're in. So I don't want to beat a dead horse. So this is what y'all get, since I didn't have, there's no inner this week. We should be back to it next week, but that's really it. You want to end racism, be a community. Talk to people who are different than you. Talk to people who have a different experience than you. Talk to people who look different than you, and find out there may be some things that you have an advantage in only because they have a disadvantage in. That something that benefits you might actually be the reason that they're being harmed, or vice versa. And you won't necessarily know unless you ask. Be willing to have the conversation. Don't be quick to dismiss people's negative experiences. It's at that point that you become part of the problem. Yes, there comes with re-education. And yes, do whatever you can to make sure those reparations go through. Something else. Let's see. Just a few announcements. So yes, School of the Empire, the enrollment is back open for the fall session. If you've already taken the spring session, I'll be covering the same material, so you don't need to take it twice. It's not a semester. You take the course once, it's pretty much going to be the same. Unless I tell y'all I've added some new stuff to it in the future, but the fall and spring sessions are exactly the same. There's also an event I have coming up this Saturday. in Orange, Texas. The links and the flyers are everywhere. Check my website, schooloftheempire.com. I even have a course coming out about Kemetic spiritual science, or Kemeticism. So if you're interested in learning some of that which is in ancient Egypt, you can sign up for that course on my website, schooloftheempire.com. As well, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Cave of Mystery. All my links are in the description. If you're looking for a community, join us in Discord. Link in the description. It's a safe place for all of you who are going through different stages of your spiritual development. You come from different backgrounds. It's a safe place for you to grow, learn, share, and all that stuff. It's a community. So if you're looking for other weirdos to get to know, Discord's a safe place. Just making sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, follow us on Facebook. I have launched my business website, at least, shop-imperial.com. I do make anointing oil, different mixes. So if you're interested in purchasing some, it's on the website. Links in the description to that as well. So yeah, I don't want to drag this out. Y'all be blessed. Until next time. Later.